Okay, so before we click play and go through this video, a lot of people have already gone over this video. A lot of people had talked their piece on it. I'm going to go over the obligatory fair use thing with 17 USC section 107 of copyright law. This is a critique slash commentary, so this video does fall under fair use because it is transformative. That's basically it to cover my end. Acerthorn is one of those people that likes to throw around copyright strikes, usually with the ploy of saying it's defamation. He's not really, like, I don't want to say anything bad about him, because making this video is likely to stir him up already. I've seen this video a long time ago, but I don't remember it. This video is actually quite old. But I was recently reminded of it the other day, and I felt like, you know what, I want to make a video on this, because when it comes to a retrospective, there's a difference between a review and a retrospective. Anybody can make a review playing a little bit of a game. That's called a first impressions, or like a quick thoughts. A retrospective should be more for when you've finished a game, not necessarily beaten a game. I think it should be a little bit more than beaten a game. Not quite mastered, I'd say completed. That's the realm of a retrospective, once you've experienced all that the game has to offer. So this video is a retrospective, but Acerthorn did not finish Dark Souls, not even close. He quit, he gave up, he went hollow. And I think the title, he picked those words deliberately, maybe even bordering maliciously, to garner attention. Poking at the Dark Souls fanbase a little bit, trying to instigate something maybe. And once people started firing back, he fired back at them. And that is something that you don't do. That is a losing battle. He just dug himself deep. So we're going to get in. We're going to watch this. I'm going to pause it at points and make my claims upon the observations. And we'll get into it. We'll get through it.
Dark Souls sucks, and today I'd like to share with you why I feel that way.
And see, that's fine. He says Dark Souls sucks, and he says he's going to say why he feels that way. That's called an opinion, and people are allowed to have opinions. Even if they're wrong, people are entitled to their opinions per freedom of speech, and that's okay.
What's up guys, Acerthorn here, and welcome to another video game discussion video. I do these analysis and discussion videos on a regular basis, so if you'd like to see more of them, hit that subscribe button to stay notified. Now,
I don't think I will. Plus, he hasn't really had a analysis in quite some time, I'm pretty sure.
Before I get started, I want to produce a full disclaimer. I attempted a blind let's play of this game back when my channel was less than a year old. I ended the LP after only 13 episodes for 2 reasons. One of those reasons was because the game was chosen for a blind LP not by me, but by my fans at the time.
So he abandoned the let's play that was chosen by his fans. There's nothing wrong with that. I abandon games all the time. Well, I used to, and then I started completing games, but it's okay to abandon a project.
As one of my LPs was wrapping up, I held a poll asking everyone to vote for my next LP from a choice of 5 different games. Dark Souls Remastered won that poll, so I started that blind let's play series. Well, when I did the LP, it didn't get views.
Okay, so ending the let's play because it's not getting views. This shows me that he's in it for the numbers instead of being in it for the entertainment of his audience, which is a big no-no for YouTube. You shouldn't do something for the primary goal of being monetary gain and or numbers go up. You should do it because you like it and because your audience likes it. Even if you don't like the game and your audience does it, that's a good enough reason to quit playing. But your primary goal should be your entertainment and the audience's entertainment. If it's something that the audience wanted, then that's what you should do. Ending it early because you have a low average view duration, maybe you should look into why the view duration is low. YouTube Analytics has tons of helpful tools that shows you when people stop watching and when the most popular parts of your videos are. And you can look into that to determine, all right, when are people dropping off and why? What can I do to change? And how can I interact with the community to see if I can mitigate that and turn things around to make the view duration go up and have audience retention stay higher.
Now, as a YouTube content creator, I need views on my channel to survive. So, obviously, this was disappointing.
YouTube's not a real job. I'm just going to say that right now. Sure, a lot of people make money and have livelihood off of YouTube, but content creation is one of those gray areas. People treat it so hard like it's, oh, I'm going to die if I don't get YouTube views. That's not the case. There's tons of other avenues of work out there where you can have YouTube as a hobby.
This is made 10 times as disappointing when you take into account the fact that I chose this game to LP because it got the most votes in a poll. It's one thing to pass on watching a video that you're not interested in. It's quite another thing entirely to state outright, we are interested in this series, and then not actually watch the series when I make it. Now, aside from this opening section, I will not be discussing the Let's Play series' performance. I may be disappointed at how the fans outright lied to me.
I don't think they lied. I think it's more of how your Let's Play actually was in terms of gameplay and commentary, and that's why the audience retention was so low. Again, that bounces back to the analytics, and you could have taken a look at why people were clicking off the video. Ask the community, engage with them, see what you could have done to fix that, and then continue the Let's Play, and maybe you would have had a little bit of better attitude and people would have stuck around. People likely dropped off because they didn't like the attitude during the commentary. If you're not interested in a game while you're playing it, it shows in your commentary, and that can dissuade people from continuing to watch.
But that is not the game's fault. Instead, what I will be talking about today is something I can indeed blame on the game. The fact that the game just isn't fun. That being said,
that's an opinion.
Some of you might reasonably be asking, why are you even bringing this up if it isn't going to be a factor in your retrospective? Is it just to rant about how butthurt you are about the lack of views? Well, no, not really.
That's what it seems like so far.
It's to explain to you that I only really have 13 episodes worth of experience playing this game, and this lack of experience will likely be a factor in how I view certain elements of the game. Compare that to my retrospective on Fallout New Vegas. I wasn't enjoying that game very much, but at least it was getting views. So I soldiered on and finished the game for the sake of the channel rather than for my own entertainment. So I was able to provide a retrospective up to and including the final.
What's wrong with the video? What's wrong with the video there? Also, this brings up the views thing again. He's guided by numbers going up. That's the wrong mindset to have when it comes to content creation.
A leg of the main quest. However, despite having an incomplete experience with this game, I will not pull any punches in this retrospective. After all, if the game can't get me hooked into it after the first couple of hours, it doesn't deserve to keep my attention after that.
That's an interesting point. If the game can't get you hooked after a couple hours, you have to look at why the game isn't hooking you. If you're trying the same thing over and over and over and over again and it's not working and you keep getting frustrated, that's on you because you're not taking the initiative to learn from your mistakes, find out what's wrong, and try something different, and then the game might be enjoyable.
I do not believe in continuing on with a game despite not having fun just because of some arbitrary expectation that I can't truly have an opinion on the game, a valid opinion at least, unless I've played the game for an arbitrary number of hours.
You can have an opinion on a game with any amount of playtime, as long as you have any amount of playtime. You can't have an opinion on a game if you have no playtime in it. There's no arbitrary amount. He's making that up. That's what we call a straw man, kind of. He's making it up. He's making up an excuse, and for his lack of accountability.
If there is an arbitrary length of time I should be expected to play a game before I can have a legitimate opinion on the game, I'd probably go with 2 hours, since that's the maximum length of time I'm allowed to play the game before I can get a refund on Steam.
Is this an opinion video or is this a retrospective? Because I think I've heard him say retrospective once, maybe twice, but he's said opinion at least half a dozen times. So I'm confused. The title says retrospective, but he keeps talking about people being mad that he has an opinion.
For this reason, despite being aware that I am reviewing an incomplete playthrough,
now it's a review. Which is it? Lots of inconsistencies.
Every criticism I make at the game today will come without the slightest hint of hyperbole. So
I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of hyperbole in this video.
With that out of the way, let's begin the retrospective proper. We begin the game in the
So it is a retrospective. Okay, got it.
tutorial dungeon, which is known as the Undead Asylum. Seeing as we'll eventually learn that the vast majority of people in the main game are undead, or hollows as they are called in-game, it seems rather awkward that there would be an asylum for them. Anyway, some random asshole.
Why would it be awkward for there to be an asylum for the hollows and or undead when there's a mass outbreak of hollows or undead?
Drops a key into our cell so we can escape, and right off the bat, I noticed a huge problem in this game's design.
Uh-oh. What's the huge problem?
Before I literally did anything else in the game, the first order of business is to just open the fucking door, and I couldn't figure out how to do that. Turns out, the HUD does indeed tell you how to open the door, except for one tiny problem. The HUD was disabled by default.
Blatant lie. I do remember this from the very first episode of the Let's Play. He went through the options before starting the recording, and he turned the HUD off. So, he disabled the HUD. The game, I have so many hours in Dark Souls. The HUD is not disabled by default.
Hey guys, Acerthorn here. I just wanted to issue a clarification before we continue. This is not a correction, this is a clarification, because I am still right about this. The footage you just saw and are about to continue to see is of me flailing against a stone wall, not the door. The reason for this is because when I was writing the script for this review, I was planning on using footage from the Let's Play for this retrospective. For the most part, I still am. However, when I actually went to use the footage, I remembered that in episode 1 of the Let's Play, I had actually cut out 99% of the footage of me struggling to open the door without any button prompt appearing on screen. Seeing as that took up about 20 minutes and nothing of note.
20 minutes? And you didn't think to check the options menu?
Happened during that time. So I tried to work around this. I booted up the game and attempted to record some footage of me flailing around in front of the door, just like when I played the game for the first time. However, the button prompts still appeared on screen just like they were supposed to.
Because you fixed the HUD that you messed up.
So sadly, I do not have any visual proof that this exact problem actually happened.
Because it's not an actual problem, and it didn't actually happen. It was your goof, so this is not a clarification. It is a correction, and you just cannot own up to your own mistake.
Of course, you don't just have to take my word for it. There is still some circumstantial evidence of this bug. If you go and watch episode
It's not a bug.
1 of the Let's Play, you can actually hear the sound effect of the start menu coming up, but the start menu doesn't actually appear on screen until after the jump cut. So as you can see, I did indeed encounter a bug where no visual prompts appeared on screen. So I still stand by the criticism I have levied, and will continue to levy against this game.
It is a false criticism. It's your goof. Own up to it. Plain and simple. Objectively true.
Alright, recommencing retrospective in 3, 2, 1. Seriously, game? I heard that this game was punishingly difficult and threw you precisely 0 bones throughout the entire playthrough.
The game gives you plenty of bones throughout your playthrough. Just talk to people. Context clues. Being aware of your surroundings. Trying stuff out.
However, I was also consistently told that the difficulty was extreme, but fair. It never pulled any kind of cheat tricks to artificially increase the difficulty. If you ever got stuck, it's because the game bested you, not because it tricked you.
This is a tricky one because it's like 99.9% true. I can think of maybe two things in Dark Souls that aren't fair. But 99.9% of the time, when something happens to you, it is your fault. The first thing being the boulder in the Undead Asylum, but that's just chalked up to not paying attention to your surroundings. So really, that one technically doesn't count. The other is the invincibility of Seath in the first encounter with him. The game doesn't tell you that you're going to die there, and then it warps you somewhere else, so you cannot retrieve your bloodstain. If you go back, you just die again, and that doesn't really give you an opportunity to learn from your mistakes, other than maybe I should try something else. But that is a point in the game where the game just flat out kills you and does not explain why. So that one can be technically classed as unfair.
So what's with this horse shit? I never
There was no need for that.
expected that get good applied to the game's basic controls, making me figure out on my own something as basic as how to display the HUD?
Again, that's your fault.
How is that a fair challenge? So right off the bat, before I even get out of the first goddamn room, this game is already getting on my last damn nerve. So after I figure out how to open the door, I go through the asylum, killing other undead who apparently have also escaped from their cells. Then this happens. Alrighty. Ow!
Pay attention to your surroundings. Don't just randomly run around everywhere. If you've heard that the game is supposed to be difficult, maybe you shouldn't blindly be running around everywhere without being cautious.
Okay, how exactly is that a fair challenge? There was literally
Plus, it didn't kill you.
0.429 seconds from the moment this boulder appeared on screen to the moment it hit me. How was I supposed to dodge that? So anyway, I defeat the Asylum Demon, and that means my character has proven himself worthy of entering the main game. When we get there, we meet some guy. Let's call him Ricky. He's the one who gives us the quest for the rest of the game.
There's no salvation here. You'd have done better to rot in the undead asylum.
Well, isn't
Nice sniff.
Ricky just a ray of sunshine?
So basically, in order to complete the game, I need to journey to the undead church and then to a place called Blind Town and ring a pair of bells of awakening. And here is where we get to the biggest problem of the game. There's no real story to this game.
Oh boy. There's no story in Dark Souls. There's tons of story. Just because you don't have the capabilities of paying attention to what the NPCs are telling you and using environmental clues and exploring doesn't mean that there's no story.
The game is marketed as an RPG. Well, the story is the most important part of an RPG.
That's debatable. I would say gameplay is equal to story in terms of how good an RPG is. An RPG could have the best story in the world, but if it has dog water gameplay, it's not good. If it has the best top tier gameplay and zero story, it's not a good RPG.
It's like the jumping mechanics in a platformer or the gunplay in a first-person shooter. A bad story can kill an RPG, and a good story can bring an RPG with mediocre mechanics back from the dead. This is one of the biggest reasons why Fallout 76 was so poorly received, despite it not really being any buggier than the other half a dozen Bethesda games that came before it.
Now, I've never played Fallout 76, but I'm pretty sure there's a ton of story, and if it plays anything like Fallout 4, the gameplay is actually fine. It's not bad at all. So I don't see why he has this argument if Fallout 76 has good story and good gameplay. That qualifies it as a good RPG, does it not?
Because at least those games had great stories to compensate for the lack of mechanical function. So when I say that this game has no story, that's quite a serious charge against it. Now, people who suck
And it's a false one.
this game's dick are probably
Are you throwing shots at me?
typing away at their keyboards right now saying that the game does indeed have a story. It just does everything it can to hide it from the player.
It doesn't do everything it can to hide the story from you. The story is very it's not out there, but it's not completely hidden from you, and the game doesn't try to hide it from you.
Well, first of all, if it goes out of its way to keep the story hidden from the player, then you really can't fault me for not noticing the story and getting wrapped up in it, can
It's your fault for not reading.
you? Second, no, it doesn't. It has a backstory, not a story.
It has both. It has lore, and it has story.
Those are not the same thing. A backstory has already happened. It's what sets the stage for the current narrative and explains how the world and the characters got to the points they are currently at. It isn't a story because there's no storytelling taking place. Backstories do not have any characters going on any journeys. No characters are seen struggling to achieve any goals, nor do they grow as characters in a backstory, and there certainly is no resolution to any plots.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of progression and resolution in the opening cinematic to Dark Souls. It tells the story from before the beginning of time all the way to the Age of Fire. And what happens to the lords, how they got to where they are, and what happens next, which is where the player comes in, and that's where the story continues.
Compare this to some of the greatest RPGs of all time. Take Skyrim, for example. The backstory for that game includes the Oblivion Crisis, the eruption of Red Mountain, which forced the Dark Elves to integrate within Skyrim, the rise of the Mede Dynasty, the Great War, the Forsworn Uprising, and Ulfric's assassination/dueling of High King Torrig. But the actual story of Skyrim is dealing with the fallout of those things. The main story of Skyrim is the Civil War and the Return of the Dragons. That's where all the actual storytelling happens in that game.
The story of Dark Souls is about the undead curse after the events of the first flame and the fire starting to fade.
Dark Souls may have some world building that explains the origins of each of the various items I can acquire in the game. Characters I meet on my travels may have some really interesting backstories, none of which actually matter in the slightest to the conceit of your main quest. The player character has no reason to actually be invested in any of this.
They have tons of reason. You're freed from your cell. You've been locked up for what's supposed to be the rest of your life to just sit there and rot away as an undead until you go hollow. When you're freed from your cell by some unknown person, so you have a reason.
The player character has absolutely no backstory whatsoever.
The character doesn't need backstory aside from the fact that they're an undead. They are a blank slate. You are supposed to put yourself in the role of the character. That's RPG 101.
For all we know, he has spent his entire existence in this dinky little cell. Then he escapes from his prison and gets dropped into a world he doesn't know and is expected to risk his life saving. Now, at first glance, this sounds like an idea with some good potential to it. It really puts a new spin on the problem of ludonarrative dissonance. This world is just as foreign to the player character as it is to the player on a first playthrough.
Yes, and that's very good. It instills the sense of discovery, mystery, unknown, and trying to unravel what is going on in terms of the undead curse, the lords, the world of Lordran as a whole, and the events that transpired to this moment.
However, it never evolves beyond just having good potential. The developers don't really do anything with this unique concept, and more importantly, it ends up being counterproductive to providing any sort of context or motivation for the player to actually go out and save the day.
Your motivation is to stop the undead curse. That's what Oscar tells you when he gives you the Estus flask. He tells you the prophecy about the undead, and then the crestfallen warrior tells you about both bells. Then one of the two serpents will tell you about Gwyn and how to either prolong or end the Age of Fire.
In the vast majority of good RPGs, the game first goes out of its way to make the player understand why the main quest is so important. In Skyrim, after you escape from Helgen, you begin to acclimate to the lives of the Skyrim locals, growing to care for a few of them.
I'm pretty sure that Oscar and the Crestfallen both telling you about the prophecy is engaging enough for the player to start having some sort of interest in the story and the happenings in the world.
This means that the player is motivated to hunt down Alduin since he doesn't want Alduin to do to his new friends what he did to Helgen. In Dragon Age Origins, you began the game along with your family, giving much more weight to your duties as a Grey Warden than if the game had just began at Ostagar, because you, the player, realized what you were leaving behind and who you are charged with protecting. In Super Mario RPG, about 1/3 the way through the game, you were given a clear reason why you need to hunt down the star pieces in order to restore wishes to Mario's world.
1/3 of the way through the game, and it finally gives you the story. That seems counterproductive to your argument, especially about being 2 hours into Dark Souls and not reading or listening to the NPCs and saying that there's no story. But you have to make it 1/3 of the way through Super Mario RPG to begin to understand. Seems pretty counterintuitive. Bad argument.
Fallout 4 is often criticized for completely botching this important part of RPG storytelling. Your mission in the main quest is to rescue your infant son and avenge the murder of your spouse. Two characters who the player, as opposed to the player character, barely know the first names of, let alone have grown to care for. Now, while I disagree that the game actually botched,
It's Nora and Sean. And yeah, Fallout 4 did its story kind of bad because there's no real urgency to it. You can leave the vault and then just go off and join different factions and mess around and build settlements and leave your son totally behind and not care about your dead wife.
Watches this section of the story, see my full retrospective on that game for more details. The fact that it is
I wonder if he's completed every game for his retrospectives, or if they're like this Dark Souls one where he just quits like a quarter of the way through and then decides that he's played enough where he can give a full-on retrospective. I might have to look into them, actually, especially the Fallout 4 one, and even more so the Fallout New Vegas one. I love Fallout New Vegas.
so criticized just goes to show how much RPG fans usually treasure this obligatory moment in their games. It provides essential context for your actions in the story. It shows that the player character has people who he cares about and who care about him. In Dark Souls, what's the context for the player's actions? Go ring a couple of church bells and see what happens. Nobody gives a rat's ass about you. Nobody even cares if you succeed, and you have no personal stake in the fate of this world. You're just expected to work your way through this gauntlet of enemies with no context whatsoever for an undefined reward at the end.
Oh, I've already said enough about that.
Now, there are plenty of games out there where you are provided with minimal context, but where the level design alone provides a challenging, engaging, and rewarding experience.
Dark Souls provides a challenging and rewarding experience.
The Mario platformers are one example that come immediately to mind. However, in order for a game to succeed on those grounds, the gameplay, as opposed to the story, really needs to be at the top of its game.
I'd argue that Dark Souls gameplay is very, very good. Very, very good gameplay. It took what was established in Demon Souls, built upon it, and it's so in-depth. There's so much, it's so intricate. I don't know how many different play styles there are, the build variety alone. Dark Souls gameplay is very, very, very good, especially for its time. And it still works to this day. You can see that through adaptations with Bloodborne and Elden Ring.
This is where Dark Souls is so commonly praised, not in its deep and emotionally driven story, but in its punishing difficulty.
Dark Souls is praised for both its story and its gameplay. I wouldn't say it's praised for its difficulty. The difficulty is a touchy topic because that's a marketing ploy. And that falls on Bandai Namco. They use difficulty as their marketing for the game. It gets people intrigued. It gets people interested. Oh, can I beat this hard game? This it's so popular. Everyone's talking about this really hard game. It's marketing. People do care about the story. People praise the story. People do care about the gameplay. People praise the gameplay because both the story and the gameplay in Dark Souls is good.
And it's also one where I feel the game falls rather flat. The whole appeal behind this game is its punishing yet fair difficulty. To achieve
That's not the whole appeal behind the game.
this, the game needs to have enemies whose attack patterns can be memorized. If the game constantly throws curveballs at the player for no other reason than to just keep things difficult, that's not a fair challenge.
I don't think Dark Souls does that. There's a lot of learning in Dark Souls, and the game doesn't just randomly throw curveballs at you out of nowhere, unless if there's context clues in the environment. Then something can switch up, and then things can change, and then that's a new experience for you to learn and adapt to.
That's just the game developers constantly changing the rules of the game simply because lol. You
They don't constantly change the rules of the game. You're just failing to learn.
can't get good at the game if the game is constantly shifting as soon as you get into a groove. Well, try as I might, I was unable to ascertain any real attack patterns from these enemies. Now, maybe you could argue that this was just me not noticing the enemy attack patterns
And not paying attention, and not learning from your mistakes, and failure to try different things when things don't work.
But you know what other gameplay mechanic I found to be just as frustrating and which doesn't have that excuse? These damn rats. If I get hit by them, I suffer a poison effect. Now, on paper, this doesn't seem like too much of a problem. However, the poison effect from these rats lasts so long that I need about 5 or 6 Estus flasks in order to avoid dying before the effect wears off. I need these Estus flasks since on a blind playthrough I have no way of knowing when I'll need them. So anytime I take a single hit from these rats, it's honestly in my best interests to return to the bonfire to restore my health and refill my Estus flasks.
So why do you keep going back and doing the same thing over and over again? Why don't you think, maybe I'm doing something wrong, and try something else, instead of constantly getting hit by the rats and getting poisoned? Learn from your mistakes.
This has the effect of the rats being the equivalent of a one-hit KO. While I would certainly expect that level of difficulty given
A one-hit KO? It took 3 hits, maybe even 4, for the rats to poison you. Maybe after the first hit, you could have backed off, seen what they do, and try a different approach. It was not a one-hit KO.
Given Dark Souls' reputation, I would have expected that in the end game, not shortly after defeating the Taurus Demon, which is the first major boss in the game after the tutorial. But for a minute, let's accept the difficulty. That is, after all, a main marketing point of this game.
Hey, he got something right. Difficulty is about the marketing.
However, one thing that makes this absolutely unbearable is that every time I return to the bonfire, all the enemies respawn except for the bosses and mid-bosses.
The game tells you that in the tutorial. Did you not read?
This means that every time I take even a single hit from these rats, I've essentially made no progress towards the next bonfire.
That's when you think about what you've done and think about what you could do differently. And also the rats do not poison you in a single hit.
There was no sense of progression for me, no sense of achievement.
Because you're failing to progress.
Because my achievements were always undone. In addition to there being no context for fighting these enemies, there's also no closure. It's just a repetitive slog. I literally just keep fighting the same enemies. The exact same enemies over and 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 over and.
This dude thought it was a good idea to upload this? Oh my god, make it stop, please. I'll give you $100.
And over again.
Oh, thank God he stopped. Oh my god. This can't be real. This can't be real. This can't be real. I'm going to lower the volume in post for that section because, oh my god, that was beyond unbearable.
Hey, was that repetitive enough for you? Welcome to my world, you jackasses! So considering that I wasn't having any fun playing this boring, repetitive slog of a game,
Sounds like a personal issue.
that means that once I realized that the series wasn't going to get views because my fans had basically lied to me,
They didn't lie to you. Maybe they up and left because of the god-awful gameplay over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
I stopped playing. I think on 2 occasions I made it all the way to the gargoyle boss fight, but I never beat them, and quite frankly I don't even care anymore. In no small part because the lack of any...
If you didn't care, you wouldn't have made 20 follow-up videos talking about this and digging yourself into the deepest hole that you can never get out of, becoming a laughing stock, and constantly instigating and poking at the Dark Souls community, trying to rile them up and start something.
real story meant I was never given a reason to care in the first place. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I believe that Dark Souls sucks.
Oh, you call that a retrospective? I'm gonna make a real Dark Souls retrospective, which, speaking of Dark Souls retrospectives, probably one of the best ones that I could recommend for people to watch would be from Lobos Jr. And the man, the myth, the legend. He is qualified to do a retrospective, as are many other people, but not Acerthorn.
If there's anything you would like to say about how accurate my review is, you are free to post in the comments. I welcome discussion and even disagreement, as long as you are civil about it. But until then, I bid you all adieu.
He responds to 99.9% of the criticisms with his own comment of, whatever. He dismisses everything. Nothing's ever his fault.
Acerthorn out. Peace.
Maybe we'll watch his Let's Play at some point. I don't know. Yeah. I wonder if Acerthorn is going to say anything about this video. And then he'll... Oh, copyright. Oh, and I'll never hear about it. Over and over and over and